Why is integration important to you?
It's not just about identity, that they feel like they're whole, but that they have the skills to apply the values and learnings to any particular situation. So when they're confronted with a situation, they know what Judaism says about how to react, or how to be a moral and ethical person.
So I wanted to build on this this psychological piece about sort of wanting kids to have one identity and add a cognitive academic piece to it, because I think kids particularly as learners come as one person to whatever they're studying. So they come as they come as this little Jewish American child to studying Torah, to studying math, to studying anything. And I think it's actually a lot of work to ask them to compartmentalize into different subjects. And so in fact, I think by teaching them in an integrated model, we're not only are we sort of encouraging them to think, to sort of integrate who they are identity-wise, but we're tapping into the way people think. We don't sort of think about math from 9 to 9:35 and Jewish things from 9:35 to 10:05. That's just not the way people work.
I would sort of echo what she was saying about how integration suits the needs of the way children and adults think, and therefore it's an appropriate way to be teaching them. But sort of beyond that, I think it also either answers or helps give the students tools to answer the big questions of Jews in modernity, and how are they a Jew in the world today, that they're not in the shtetl, or if they're not living in an ultra-Orthodox community, they are in this modern and postmodern world.
It's something about us teachers, us human beings who stand in front of the children, and in the embodiment of integration, when we say it's these connections we allow the children to make, but at the same time, it's connections we allow ourselves to make as well. So that commitment starts first with us, the educators, the teachers. I feel that schools can have the philosophy, can have the vision, and so on. But it is what happens the moment we stand in front of the children and what we create. That integration, that's the spark of integration already.
Integration has become a slogan. That is, it's something that everybody says, we do it, salute, and then they can either do something about it or not. But it sounds so good. Imagine the opposite. Our day school believes in disintegration. Not going to happen. So what we try to do, we who are educators, is to try to take that slogan and fill it in a meaningful way so that it has educational impact and import. And I think one of the great things that Delit has accomplished is raising up a generation of teachers who say, I believe that there really ought to be a there. And even if I'm struggling against a system where structures don't support it, I'm going to try my best to bring integration here. And as I take on the L in Delit, the leadership piece, I'm going to start working with colleagues. Anything that a teacher can do to connect what they're teaching with something that they're not teaching. Whether it is something in language arts and math, perhaps, or whether it's something in general studies and Jewish studies. Just constantly being on the lookout for connections. And when children see that teachers do it, they start doing it, and they become connecting people too. We're going to look at connecting a little more. Judaism and modernity are not perfect fits, do not line up perfectly. Indeed, there is tension. And here, my thinking is that if there is no tension, if Judaism is just another way of saying the same values that we have as modern liberal Americans, and I use liberal in the liberal arts sense, not politically liberal. If Judaism is just the same, then why be Jewish? Sylvia Barrick-Fishman of Brandeis studied American Jews and coined the term coalescence, What she said is, if you look at most American Jews, their idea is that a Jewish value is anything I like. Kindness is a good thing. Kindness is a Jewish value. Democracy, I like democracy. Democracy must be a Jewish value. Yoga, I like yoga. Yoga must be a Jewish value. Okay? Now, yoga is clear. It comes from a different religious tradition. Democracy is also, just doesn't happen to be a Jewish value. It's a value that most, if not all of us, really prize. In Exodus it says, do not follow the majority to do evil. So, Jewish values are not perfectly... What?
The Mishnah disagrees with that.
Disagrees that we should follow the majority to do evil?
But that the majority should rule.
Well, it's open for a lot of conversation and debate in the tradition. It's not so simple as to say we are or we aren't. But in any case, let's take another example. These truths we hold to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The basic, fundamental text of American political thinking. What's the basic, fundamental text of Jewish thinking? Behold, I have set before you this day the blessing and the curse. Therefore, live according to the commandments that you may be blessed. It's in Deuteronomy about 100 times in 100 different ways. It's all about mitzvot, obligations. American political theory is all about rights. It's not a perfect fit. And that's a good, exciting thing. Now, do we present that to pre-kindergarten or, advanced kindergarten? But I don't know. I once presented this idea to primary teachers, K1 and 2. And they said to me, it was me and a psychologist, the two of us were presenting together. And this teacher says, no, you can't do that. You can't teach young children that maybe there's some points where we have to look at our American and our Jewish roots, and they're not going to say the same thing. That this little poem doesn't work. You have to teach young children about this poem. Then when they're older, you'll teach them some differences. Because if you teach them this, you're going to create some anxiety. That's what the teachers of K1 and 2 said. The psychologist raised his hand and said, good. And the teachers looked at him and said, what? You're the one who cares for children. Why do you want them to experience anxiety? And those of you who have taken the Health and Jewish Values course at HUCLA know that anxiety is productive for learning. Moderate anxiety. Ooh, I've just created some anxiety in this room. Moderate anxiety is productive for learning. Indeed, it is differences that create the possibility for learning. If everything's the same, learning's really hard. It's when I see two things. This is what Piaget is all about. I see something that doesn't fit into my world, and I have to accommodate my worldview to it. That's what learning is. One example is a Mishloach Manot project for the holiday of Purim. Assigned to deliver Mishloach Manot to a center for Jewish elderly, students were required to A, seek guidance from traditional Jewish texts about the practice, B, investigate what foods are appropriate for these elderly, and C, manage the project financially. Okay? That's what he means. You got to deliver Mishloach Manot to the elderly. Well, what do you have to know and learn about and investigate in order to do that? And I want you to think about two things. A, what is the pedagogy of integrity? And B, if you were to accept this idea, what would it mean for your own teaching?